I definitely think that will help us, gain mainstream adoption. Is that going back to having your chains do what they do best? If you're focusing on NFTs, then you can do that on your chain. If you're focusing on identity and like KYC type services, you can do that on your chain. And it naturally talks together a lot smoother.
It's time to talk about block producers on EOS. Who are they? What do they do? And why do they do it? In this series, I will highlight the various block producers in EOS, either of the top 21 who produce the blocks or of the many standby producers waiting in the wings. Hello, everybody. It's time for another installment of the EOS BP interview series. And today we've got Michael from EOS USA. And really, Michael probably doesn't deserve any introduction at all. He's been around since the beginning. He's active on pretty much every EOS.io chain there is. He has the handle, I break your shit. So I think that's pretty awesome. And I'm sure in the end, Michael probably spends more time building things than he does breaking them. But obviously, sometimes the iterative process is important. So you need to break in order to make it better. So Michael, thanks for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. And always enjoy getting to chat about EOS and EOS.io. It's what we live, breathe, and eat. So
right on. Well, so yeah, I guess the first question, Michael, is just tell myself and our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. Myself, I guess I've been a computer nerd all my life. Like I say, I won't expose how old I am, but I'm not 21. Let's put it that way. But been around the crypto space for many years, even longer since the EOS.io. Like I say, we have a background of a blockchain company and do many chains, and fell in love with EOS and the next generation of blockchain and distributed ledger. And so I don't know, I guess 2018, 2019 kind of focused and started working full time over here at the blockchain company to focus on the EOS division and EOS.io. And we've got our proof of work division, and then we've got our proof of stake, which is basically, the non-power hungry stuff. And so that's really what I kind of run over here for our larger blockchain company.
Nice. Did you get into the proof of stake stuff prior to EOS? Like, were you like a BitShare, Steam?
Yeah, I mean, we all had our little dabbles in it. My technical background, I'm, hardcore computer nerd, hardware person. So we all as a group were kind of getting into all of them. And, I'd stand up master nodes and stake for all sorts of random coins back in the day or whatever. But
right.
my prowess was the hardware. I was great at rigging up all those GPU rigs. And I mean, we ran rooms and rooms full of these GPU rigs, which is a lot of nerd stuff. So I got my start focusing on the proof of work, supporting the hardware, because it didn't need my expertise to stand up a master node, although we've been doing it. And then, like I said, that kind of evolved into, the world kind of went ASIC based. If you're really going to do mining, you basically get ASICs. And so we've got, big liquid cooled Bitcoin mining operation. But I kind of shifted over, and these newer technologies came out that, look, there's these blockchains that run on, Ubuntu servers that don't require a neighborhood's worth of power. And EOS and EOS.io has been our primary focus. I mean, pretty much since it launched, 2018, we jumped in really heavily because believe it has a lot of benefit. I mean, that you can use it, call it blockchain 3.0. Bitcoin was 1, Ethereum, hey, that's great. It's got a little bit of programming that's hard, that's 2. And then, I know half-second block times and feeless transactions, quote unquote, things like that.
Yeah, well, actually, so that's perfect into the next question, which is kind of the history of your BP, your block producer on EOS. And also, if you could talk a bit about just your infrastructure and what you actually have in terms of hardware.
Absolutely. So we've been around. We were in the shadows, I'd say, during the pre-launch of EOS. Had Genesis tokens. Like I said, we were in on it and registered as a block producer June of 18, whenever it was that it launched. And we were kind of one of the ones that was behind in the pack. There were a lot that kind of started at the top and had to fight their way as they slipped down, but we were always down at the bottom because we didn't have the notoriety that maybe some of the other launching teams had. So we've always been hanging out and kind of scrapping our way up, and we're one of I think the few kind of indie VPs that, I mean, we spent a lot of time and many years in the 120s to 130s, some votes and some knew us, but whatever. And then finally, started kind of getting some traction and getting some support and providing some of the services. So yeah, now we're all the way up, I think. Yeah, what are we, 41 now?
41, yep.
In that pack of being able to claim rewards, to then be able to run the servers and infrastructure and develop the projects and keep the lights on, so to say. As for the our block producer entity, we're very technically based and from the infrastructure side of it. So we found that our talents were able to easily export and help support other EOSIO based projects. So very quickly early on, we found ourselves, engaging with all of the EOSIO chains that were out there as they would launch. It was kind of a known thing. You want a BP? Michael over at EOS USA is happy to run a node and help out because we want to see blockchain advance. I mean, when it really comes down to it, it doesn't have to be one chain or the other. They all have their own benefits, pros and cons. So, you can kind of, and EOSIO is kind of built, at least in our opinion, to kind of have that. What was it, Dan, that always said, would you rather have one network with 1 million nodes or 1,000 networks with 1,000 nodes? The idea of sharding. Mm-hmm. So like I say, kind of embraced that concept and started branching out, and honing our skills. So going back to my notorious handle. So of course I always, I got a good sense of humor, but I did it because, it's whenever I'm testing things, I don't know, I have an uncanny ability to hit a button the wrong way or it's just kind of, I'm a great quality control expert just because I break everything. But like I say, that really, it allows you to hone your skills. I mean, when you run 100 nodes, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, well, you fix it. You become a stronger engineer because of it. Yeah. And there's many, many, many other block producers that when things break, they're like, I know of it and I know what I need to do, but it's always good to be like, hey, I know you've done this 1,000 times. How exactly does this work? So exactly, we become a repository for a lot of the other block producers and organizations, not just DPs, to reach out, and we try to help and support them. Hey, yeah, it corrupted. You need to do this, this, and this is where your backups are, and no, you need to configure it a little differently for that. So that's kind of one of our sweet spots. Regarding infrastructure, so we've always, my background is managed service provider. Some of my other owners also, we own a managed service company, and we found ourselves with a lot of these decommissioned servers several years ago that we were pulling out, and you couldn't really sell them, you couldn't do anything with them, so they were just going to the scrapyard. And so we actually started kind of rehoming them, and we take a bunch of servers and build them together and make a 256 gig server or whatever. And then we'd be able to run all these nodes. So we're actually pretty exclusively on-premise bare metal infrastructure. So we don't use Amazon hosting services or DigitalOcean or even Hetzer or any of those cloud service providers. Mm-hmm. All of our hardware is sitting in a room right behind me here, blinky blinky. There's a few servers out in the cloud for things that can be or need to be in the cloud, but it allows us a different strategy. We were able to, I said, have unlimited hardware, although it did obviously have a limit, but I was able to spin up nodes for all these side chains and sister chains and whatever you want to call them to kind of get them up and going without having to go and rent a $500 a month server. And then obviously as the higher hardware was needed, telling you, renting some of these big mama jama servers in the cloud to run these blockchains, it gets expensive very, very quick when you need, high-end hardware. So we're able to, help minimize OpEx by, we don't have a hosting bill every month. So I was able to survive down in the 120s, never claiming any rewards for years, and still provide nodes and do the best that we could. Because we have a different, operation strategy. It also allows us to kind of focus more on, I can have 100 servers and not really have to worry about the cost. It's no difference between 100 servers and 120, other than maybe a little hardware, which allows us to do some of our specialties a little better. So,
gotcha. And you mentioned before we started here, you're talking about you've recently set up some backup power to run your nodes, which I think is extremely important. For my background in renewable power generation, all the SCADA systems needed essentially some form of backup. Some had pretty minimal UPSs, but some were more substantial, especially the main control center of sorts. So you want to talk about that you've recently done?
Correct. So, and I mean, the great thing about block production and the fact that it's decentralized is, even if our servers go offline or, we have an issue, you can unregister and there are others to step in. So it's not as detrimental that, if there's an issue that, there's a mechanism to keep it from impacting the chains as much. Obviously, you don't want that to happen and you try to do everything to prevent it. But even more so, people may not realize is that EOS IO nodes do not like having their power turned off, is that that blockchain state is in a very delicate status while it's running. It's great while it's running and doing its thing, but you just snatch the power out, you're back in like the 1990s telling you don't just turn your computer off, it may not turn back on again, right? So continuous power, even more so just to, protect the integrity of the servers themselves, even more so than just the services they provide. Does that make sense? So yes, obviously we've always had, big massive battery backups and able to survive, issues here and there. There is a little bit of a backstory. Our building got hit by lightning, I don't know, about a year ago or whatever. And of course, I mean, it fried all kinds of things. There's pictures of it. I mean, it zapped, lots of, we've got like 2 megawatt feed here and it just blew out the panels and everything. But, it really, everybody knew whenever we were having issues because all the chains started having alerts because every bit of our stuff went offline, so it really brought to light is that, and I mean, it zapped things hard, right? It wasn't like, hey, your power's out, the power company will have it on in a couple of hours. And so that's when I really made the push is that, guys, if we're really going to, this is going to be our thing, we need to be able to, never have power go out, obviously, so yes, we finally, with a little bit of a bull run, we had a little bit of funds available. And so we invested in, it's a pretty decent generator that can survive whatever environmental or power issues we have here to keep our nodes and infrastructures online. And then of course, have multiple fiber internet circuits and just about to go live with the tertiary cellular backup, just, and kind of 1, 2, 3 backups of everything. But, to do what we do, we're able to run a lot of servers and a lot of data. But because we need to do that in-house, obviously we've had to invest into, strengthening our infrastructure as much as, man, when it powers off, I mean, it takes me weeks sometimes to fix some of these servers and services. I mean, it's people don't realize.
And you're running so many. So, I mean, it's right. It's not like you just turn one back on. You're turning on a few dozen.
That's what I mean. It's not just one that goes off. It's 100 of them. And it's, all my backups. I mean, I have some backups in the cloud, but, the majority of it's here. That's our bread and butter is, everything's kind of under this. I don't have the speed latency anybody else has between their servers. Even in a hosted environment, you don't always have, real time, whatever. Oh, there is nothing but instantaneous, they're plugged into the same physical switch, right? Maybe even on the same virtual server and never even go to a physical wire, Yeah. So that's a specialty that we can provide. But, and I don't know how familiar you are with the technical requirements, but, when EOS started taking a lot of transactions and these chains start taking some load, it starts growing the amount of data that you start using very, very quickly, is that lots of accounts, lots of transactions. And we kind of specialize. One of the things we do is we try to work with a lot of projects to help grind analytics or provide automated services and things like that, because it's, you know, all the data is on the blockchain, but it's a whole lot harder than you think to get that data and use it, you know?
Yeah.
Even history nodes, you know, it's we always joke about is blockchain's known for being history that's immutable, but history is probably the hardest service to run for the blockchain, because the blockchain isn't meant to read history, it's meant to verify history, right?
Yeah,
there's a big difference between the two. So like I say, being able to build these bigger servers and these terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of storage for all these chains and transactions, and then be able to run the nodes that read those transactions and process them. You know, there are games that we work with that, you know, they've got millions of transactions going in and hundreds of thousands of players, and we go in and we, you know, read all the tables and all the actions and compute them into graphs and automatic services and things like that to be able to, you know, offload that from them having to maintain this monstrosity of a farm, because the majority of it we're running nodes on anyway as a block producer, you know. So we kind of found a sweet spot to try to help out and provide a lot of layer 2 services. Like, yeah, you see there that we've been liquid apps since the day they launched. Delphi, Price, Oracle, you know, a lot of people, blockchain doesn't know anything outside of blockchain. So even to know the price of its own token, somebody has to feed that data systematically back into the chain as an oracle is what we call that. And so, you know, that's one of the services we provide for a lot of the chains is, yep, no problem. I got the nodes, I got the knowledge, you know, I got the trust, you know, that's part of an issue on blockchain is data's great, but can I verify that price is really real? Well, as all block producers, we're paid to be validators, right? So
the trust question. Yeah, you've got quite a bit here. I especially like this one, the inter blockchain communication bit. This has come up where EOS.io seems quite ready to sort of facilitate this IBC between unique chains. But the question's always been, how do you monetize it? It's not really, someone's got to do it, but then is it worth, like, how do you get paid for that?
I get it. And there's been some IBC, you know, bridges. That's always been one of my trigger words in a good way, like say, is that even from onset was, sharding. You know, I mean, EOS.io really, I agree with you, tends to kind of have that natural sharding built into it. I'm pretty sure it was even kind of touted, you know. We're all benefiting from the same code base and the same kind of standards, just tweaked as its own ways. I definitely think that will help us, you know, gain mainstream adoption, is that going back to having your chains do what they do best. You know, if you're focusing on NFTs, then you can do that on your chain. If you're focusing on identity and like KYC type services, you can do that on your chain. And it naturally talks together a lot smoother than obviously trying to bolt in a Bitcoin Lightning service with a Ethereum 2.0 sharded framework or something, right? You know, I mean, it's more naturally built. And yes, that's a big thing. We run as many oracles and cross-chain projects as we can and try to consult projects on it, you know. Use this chain for this, but then also think about these other chains that you make and incorporate to be able to, you know, benefit from, you know, payment rails or a bigger, you know, marketplace.
Whatever they specialize in. That's right. It provides an opportunity for specialization if you can do it not on an island. If you can specialize in something and then take advantage of other bits that other chains have that complement what you have, you don't need to do it all. You can, in fact, specialize. So
that's our broad goal. Like I say, I mean, of course, everybody, you know, we try to work to bounce the ball forward on whatever project it is. But yeah, like I said, that's why IBC has been a big thing, and I think it's starting to come together. You know, you're starting to see they kind of splintered and fractionalized to begin with, you know, and I think now that everybody's kind of getting their feet wet and starting to, you know, mature, let's call it, you know, in the life cycle of the products, starting to look at, you know, they've found their niches. You know, Telos has great on-chain governance, you know, framework that they've really kind of focused and built into the thing, to their chain. And of course, you know, the new EVM contract and all of that. and wax and the NFTs and Aura ID with their, identity, and you're starting to see a little bit of this crossing back and forth, or even not if they're not direct collaborations, at least the implementations of possibly the same standards. Atomic assets is a great example. I mean, EOS, I think, is really going to start seeing some additional utilization because that atomic, I mean, it's a refined product. I mean, there's other ones. There's, I think, Simple Asset Plus is coming out. There's D-Goods still a thing, right?
Not as much, but sure.
There you go. Right? I don't know. It all blurs together, but I definitely think we can benefit from each other, and then even start to use it. A game can develop, and our big thing is that I feel like mass adoption is going to happen when you don't know what blockchain you're using. You're just doing something for the end result. Oh, you want to sell it? Okay, maybe it goes all the way over to OpenSea on ETH. I mean, I'm open to. You don't need to know whether it's ETH or whether it's EOS or whether it's whatever. Mainstream users just need the functionality. And I mean, if it's better to do it over there and pay $50 a transaction, that makes me cringe. But whatever, right? But EOS is much more right for it. We're all kind of in the same resource models, and hell, a lot of them are even Genesis accounts of each other.
Yeah. Hey, so before I move on to the next question, just have to ask about your Lightning Strike. Did you also install some much more robust surge suppressors?
Yeah. So the biggest problem was it didn't fry any of my equipment. The battery backups and all of my stuff. So we've got this big building, one of our buildings here in Greenville, South Carolina. It's our liquid cooled immersion plant. So it's about a 40,000 square foot plant with a whole boatload of Bitcoin miners dunked in water. Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the power infrastructure and everything is, kind of dedicated over to that. And of course, no, they don't have power protectors for 2 megawatts worth of power. So it obviously felt a little bit of pain, but we have, a dedicated feed from that junction box over to ours, and then all of our battery backup. Matter of fact, I don't think I even lost any battery backups. It blew out this like 2 megawatt breaker in the panel.
Yeah,
I'll see some pictures of it. But like I say, but what it did is that, I mean, obviously a lot of things turned off. And I mean, my batteries, by the time I left my house and got up here, my CFO's calling me, he thought crapped his pants, I mean, it was this massive bomb sound. He's like, dude, you gotta get here. It ain't coming back. I promise you, there's no power here for a long time. I mean, smoke, fire department showed up. We had like 6 fire trucks in our driveway. I mean, the fire hoses were running. That's what they joke about, is that didn't happen if you don't have pictures. And I'm like, I got pictures of firemen with fire hoses in my building. They're like, you win.
yeah, that's right.
But like I say, so I had about 10 minutes worth of power before, they started dropping off, because I mean, there was no power coming back. And that's when it was like, all right, that's when the plans for the generator and all came.
So that's where you could just automatic transfer switch over you go. And
correct. At least keep it running. And like I say, and if anything, it's fine. I'm not going to get power back for a week. And maybe, I mean, I can run for a week now, but at least have the ability to say, all right, guys, I'm going to shut my stuff down for a little while. We're in, this massive ice storm, and it not be corrupt. I mean, it took me weeks to
controlled shutdown, definitely preferable.
Servers, and then catch up, because when it's down, not only is it broken, but time marches on. That's what people don't realize. When you have a problem, it's a double fold, is that those transactions aren't stopping. So I got to go back and get them and catch up. Otherwise, you're just constantly behind, So.
Right on. Okay, well, and then I guess maybe this might be one of them, but what are you most proud about when it comes to your BP?
I would probably say started from the bottom, now we're here. I mean, and that we didn't have that notoriety very early on while we were here. I mean, and in all fairness, I mean, we weren't doing some of the technical things that, a lot of them were doing, but a lot of our best buds, and comrades were in that top batch and slowly, kind of fought and slid down, whereas we were always at the bottom. And there's been very few people that have been able to hang in there. There's a lot of teams that, and rightfully so. I mean, you're paying bills, you've got other things going on, that they would drop out. No, we're going to keep going. I mean, still haven't gotten anything, but we believe, you know, and I'd find other mechanisms to, you know, survive and pay bills, you know, and provide good where I could. But like I say, is that we were able to come from the back of the pack, and I'd like to think be, you know, one of the respectable names in the space, versus having kind of started off with that notoriety, rightfully so. You know.
Like you say, so currently you're number 41 in terms of on-chain standby block producer currently, but recently on the Eden on EOS, using the EOSrate.io tool, Eden members ranked BPs, and EOS USA came in at number 17 out of all the BPs. So the game of how BPs are selected is it doesn't, there's not necessarily an alignment between what some of the more baby token holders feel should be the BPs versus maybe the whales. And without going into the politics of that, what I can say is, at least in the eyes of the community, the Eden members community, EOS USA should be making blocks right now. So I think kudos to you guys, and you know, shows like this and more awareness of the work that you're doing. And you guys got tons of videos on your one site, tons of chains that you're supporting. I think hopefully we get you further up there and actually making some blocks. That would be,
absolutely,
you know, teams like yours would take advantage of your hardware.
Yeah, and the same side, like I say, I offer extended for any projects. I mean, that's what I'm always kind of, you know, if a project wins, we all win, right? So, you know, yes, happy to produce blocks, but, you know, our main thing is, what can we do? I mean, producing blocks isn't gonna make EOS better, right? I mean, we're excited about, you know, we've got some dev projects, but one of our sweet sauces, and I think, you know, an exclusive, not exclusive, but a limited marketplace for, is we want to provide services for other projects. You know, that's our focus, as opposed to we've got our pet project that we do. Mm-hmm. That's my drive, is to help you and your project succeed. So same thing as if anybody has a, you know, EOS project that, you know, I always say is, my unofficial tagline is, we do the nerd so you don't have to. So
well, that's great though. I mean, yeah, you want to, that's any project who's looking to build something, you don't want to be able to try to tackle all the questions. Like, you want to trust someone like yourself who can do services like provider, customized solution.
You know, that's we learned, you know, in the IT world, is that, you know, I mean, specialization, and it's beneficial to say, look, no, let me do me and you do that other stuff, right? You know.
Yeah.
So that was like an open invitation, for excited to help anybody that we can, and consult, you know, even, no, that's not the way that works. You might want to think about this.
Right. Yeah. So I guess in light of that, and maybe future projects that might be coming, is there, what excites you the most about the future of the EOS blockchain?
I'm excited. It's, I don't know how to word it, but maybe, you know, seeing a new era of engagement and ability to kind of right the ship. You know, I mean, we all have, it's great technology. I mean, there's a lot of strength. It's still by far, you know, the largest, you know, market cap of an EOSIO chain. So there's so much potential. It's just decentralization is hard, man. I mean, it really makes it difficult. And, you know, I'm excited to see, keeping with the decentralized spirits, but a little bit of a, all right, guys, what are we all working for? You know, what's the end game? What can we do to advance that? You know, who's paying attention, who's not, you know, things like that. I am excited that, you know, I think we all had kind of.
So it sounds like you're on board and supportive of the EOS Network Foundation, trying to sort of centralize the vision of sorts.
I am on board with, there needs to be a drive. And of course, you know, I mean, without getting into all the technical details, I mean, just generally, and just across all the chains, really seen it, you know, while you may not like centralization and war chests and visions help advance. I mean, we're fighting an uphill battle, right? I mean, we've got to gain adoption. We've got to make things better. We've got to get there. And when you're constantly bickering and battling over who can be funded, nobody, torch it. oh my God, you know, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I voted for it as well, because you're right. Nobody was going to come to an agreement, but I'm excited that may get overcome, you know, and advancement that we wished maybe happened years ago, I think is hopefully going to be possible. And technology's come a long way. I mean, EOSIO has developed, you know, I mean, atomic assets and these layer 2 solutions, liquid apps, you know, they're much more matured now and able to provide more. So I'm excited that hopefully we're kind of righting the ship and getting some bearing and
very good.
Generating magic, you know.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, and I guess, and so in that line, what can the token holders, the EOS token holders, do to support you, EOS USA, and just maybe the EOS network in general?
Well, like I say, of course, as a block producer, ultimately we're paid for in votes, you know. So your support on selecting us as one of your block producers on any of the networks that you might find us on, which are all of them, is obviously, you know, supportive for us, you know, to help keep the lights on and the servers and everything running. You know, and the other thing is, I don't want to say not, you know, moral support, but, you know, I mean, if you know of a good project that you think might be a good fit, you know, we're always open to hearing about things. You know, I mean, we would love to engage with people and chat and things like that. So if you have an idea, I mean, obviously don't inundate me with every pizza token or whatever that you want to create, but there's a lot of people with a lot of good ideas that are just kind of stuck and even have the budget to do it. But EOSIO nerds are hard to find, man. I mean, the programmers, the admins and all of that, you know, so I'm happy to try to help everybody we can. So
awesome. And it looks like I should point people to your website, eosusa.io, and at the bottom here, they can submit a form to ask some questions and get in touch with you. That's probably the best way. I see you've got a Twitter handle as well. I vote for EOS USA. I'll put all these in the show notes, but
and we're starting to, we've spent so much time focusing on our technical infrastructure, and people even kind of laugh about my web presence. But here in the last couple of months, I've actually brought a web developer and a marketing person on board. So you're about to see a bigger campaign on our Twitter and all those. Of course, you see the websites, you know, we're kind of revamping those and trying to, who is EOS USA versus just seeing our stars and bars on that list and not realizing what we actually do. So.
Well, you got lots of videos on your YouTube. I know there's this other site, eosusa.news, and that's linked to your YouTube channel. And you've got, I mean, tons here, Alien Worlds work and Proton, Telos stuff. I mean, you got lots of stuff here. So lots of content for people to dig into, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, Alien World site.
Our game sites that, you know, we work with a project to provide statistics and automation services and, you know, help them focus on what they need to focus on and let us kind of do some of the additional services on the side because we've got the data and the analytics. So
yeah, that's great. Well, this has been great, Michael. Really appreciate having you in the community for one, and certainly taking the time to do this. I understand you had some issues already this morning, so thanks for making time for me. I don't know if you have any final last thoughts or words you want to say.
I don't know.
Go EOS.
Yeah, go EOS. There you go. Right.
Right on. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Michael. I appreciate it.
See ya.